rise and fly, go.
Welcome to 24K, gaming, movies, and television reviews. Today we're here to talk about a series that is synonymous with over 4 decades in the genre. We're talking about Ghostbusters. That's right. Now, Ghostbusters is a franchise that has, on all platforms of this channel, literally been legitimate over the last 40 years. Both movies, gaming, television, animated, as well as now newer console gens, even next gen, and even, I have to talk about it, there was a all-female version of the Ghostbusters a few years ago that didn't do too well and didn't go well over with the community. But the series was able to capitalize and refranchise that with Afterlife, a direct sequel, which in my opinion, between that and the Ghostbusters, the game, it was the sequels that we wanted and the sequels that we got. Now, if you're not familiar with the Ghostbusters, the video game, it takes place directly after the events of Ghostbusters 2 with Gozer and, Vigo, the Carpathian, and taking over the city. Now, those of you who are familiar with the game know that the actual characters, including the late Harold Ramis, voiced those characters in the series, as well as Alyssa Milano and Walter Peck, the actor that did Walter Peck. So it was literally voiced by the entire cast. The only person I believe did not make the adaptation was Rick Moranis, but neither did he also in Ghostbusters Afterlife in the recent years that came out. I don't know what the purpose for that was. Maybe he just was retired and was not acting. It would have been nice to see him reprise his role as Louis Tully. After all, it was such a small role, but he did such a great job with it that it literally is synonymous with the Ghostbusters name and brand. Even Peter McNichol, who did Janosch, he was a small character, but that crazy, weird thing he did, that sticks in your mind for the rest of your life with Ghostbusters. So we're going to talk about the franchise as a whole. Now, the franchise as a whole is definitely a platinum rating. I would have to take something off for the all-female version adaptation. Not that I have anything wrong, because there have been female superheroes, there's been female heroines since the beginning of time. The fact of the matter is, when you concentrate so much on that you dumb down the male roles to reiterate how woke you are, it destroys the nature of your film. And Kristen Wiig and some of my favorite people were a part of that. But like to get Liam Hemsworth, or was it Chris Hemsworth? I think it was Chris Hemsworth. Doesn't matter. They were a part of it as well. But once again, you take this powerful, great character, and I believe he was Thor at the time. He was playing Thor at the time, and you made him the dumb blonde receptionist. You relied heavily on CG. There were just so many mistakes. It wasn't the fact that it was all female. So I hate the people that say, well, it's because it was all female cast. No, it wasn't. Charlie's Angels was pretty much an all female cast. Did a great job. What I'm saying is, when you concentrate your movie on the fact around that ideal, that's what destroys. It's a franchise. Sigourney Weaver was a part of that franchise, and one of the best parts of that franchise. Once again, they didn't need to dumb her down. They didn't need to make her the helpless villain who needed saving. Hell, she turned into a dog and tried to kill Peter. I liked her as the gatekeeper. Louis Tully did the same thing. So you would say, well, she did this role. No, because Rick Moranis played the exact opposite role that she was playing, gatekeeper, the same way. They both bodied the roles. If it wasn't for her, Oscar wouldn't have been a part in the second one, when Vigo the Carpathian tried to invade Oscar. Like I said, the series itself as a whole is a magnificent series. It's a statement of what we like about media, culture, video games, even the cartoon, the real Ghostbusters. I'm not talking about that weird shit with the monkey, the ape, and the blonde dude. I don't know what the hell that was. I watched those Ghostbusters. That's not Ghostbusters. We're talking about the real Ghostbusters, even Slimer in the real Ghostbusters. I like those. I watched those. They were dramatic. They were pretty good, actually. Ghostbusters, like I said, has been on all different levels of media. And I've enjoyed it I would say 98%. The 2% that I say would be that, like I said, that all-female adaptation of the Ghostbusters. I didn't hate it because it was all females. I hate it for the horrible CG. I hate it for the shitty graphics, the shitty line, the shitty dialogue, and I hated it for just what it was. An attempt to cash in on the Ghostbusters franchise. And it happens. If it had been an all-male attempt, because there is actually a Ghostbusters video game that has nothing to do with the Ghostbusters cast. I have it myself, and I played through it myself, and you know what? It fucking sucks. It has nothing to do with all females. It fucking sucked. The problem is, if you don't know the subject matter, if you don't know the lore, if you don't respect what started that entire franchise and made it popular, it's not going to be good. Period. Hands down. But we're talking about the first movie, Ghostbusters. Now, the first time I saw this movie, I was a child. Well, not a child. I was old enough. But the movie captivated me from beginning to end. There were a few scenes that I was like, what the fuck? More in particular, the scene where Ray is in the bed and a ghost is unzipping his pants and giving him some fan service, which I don't know why that had to be in the movie. Beyond that, it was a great, I can't say it was a great scene because I didn't get that. Even as an adult, I look at it a few times like, ooh, wait a minute. That's one of those scenes where you like tell your kids to look away, because back then, PG and PG-13 was a different rating system. Back then, those PG and PG-13s were rated R's, some of them very hard R's. But that is the only scene I could really take away from in that movie, because other than that, I like this story. I like the idea of Ghost running wild and the end of humanity. I also like the entrance of Ernie Hudson, because one thing that I always said about the Ghostbusters cast when I was watching it before I actually saw the movie was, I was like, I kind of wish they had a little of diversity in it. And not just because I wanted to see a diverse cast, but because it brings a different level of acting to it. There's some lines, there's some situations and some things that you can explore deeper into. And me being somebody from a young urban idealist perspective, I latched onto that more. And believe it or not, Winston Zeddemore is one of my favorite characters. I prefer Egon, but Winston is one of my favorite characters. And I say it all the time. If you can think of an iconic scene in those movies that stick with you decades later, the movie did its job. And the one that sticks in my mind is from Ghostbusters 2, when they're in the subway system and the train is coming and Winston is just sitting there while everybody else jumps off the track, and he's sitting there screaming as the train goes through him. And Egon says, did you get the number of that locomotive? And his hair is standing up and he's shaking and trembled because he just got hit by a ghost train. And he's like, sorry, I missed it. That little delivery and comedic aspect to a movie is what grounds it in that great world. When we go to movies, I keep saying this, and I know you guys have heard it before. When we go to movies, we want to be entertained. We want to be intrigued. We want to be put into that world. We want to be enthralled, because we have our own problems in this world. We have our own realities. And we go and watch movies and television shows and play games. We want to leave those worlds behind. So if those worlds are in our games and movies and TVs, we do not get the escape. And I think that's something that's been forgotten in modern movies and TV series and in games. People forget the escapism. It's no different from drinking. It's no different from smoking a cigarette or smoking on that weed. It's no different from you wanting an escape, a little break of your life for just a little bit so that you can keep going. In games, you get a chance to save the world. You get a chance to be the president. You get a chance to be the hero. You get a chance to be the savior of the rebel cause. In certain movies, Lord of the Rings, you get to go on this journey with them, as tiring as it is, and then you get to the point of realization of where the story goes. You feel lifted. These are great storytellings. Of many faces that reflect the human genre and psyche, the storyteller has always, since the beginning of time, been one of them. People like stories. That's all movies are. That's all TV is. That's all video games are. That's all comic books are. Is there stories. Stories that give us an escape. The problem is people have forgotten this. Directors, cinematographers, actors, producers, they've forgotten this. The case in point to give you this, The Rock is one of the highest paid actors. Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, is one of the highest paid actors in Hollywood. He's never taken one acting class. Yet you have actual trained actors, thespians, people who have been on both plays, stage. They've put money and time and effort into their craft, and they're standing up at the Improv in front of a Hardee's or a McDonald's, or they're getting low cast in these roles. These are methodly great trained actors, and that's the point I'm trying to make. If you notice, a lot of British actors who have went to these schools of training and drama and intrigue, they make the best actors, and they literally surprise almost all of us when you hear them speak. Well, I didn't know they was British, because they act. That's what acting is. It's you embodying a role and becoming that role for the process of the movie. Andrew Lincoln did it as Rick Grimes in The Walking Dead, that proves my point 100%. When Rick was in The Walking Dead with Carl and the original cast, you was captivated. You couldn't take your eyes off it. You couldn't wait week to week to watch The Walking Dead. Once they got rid of that aspect in the show just kept going and going. It was just like watching a dead body on life support. You wanted to pull the plug. And I think people keep forgetting this. It takes a lot to get people hooked. It is a relationship between producer, production, cinematographer, and these people, and us, the viewers. But that relationship has to be a two-way street. If it's only a one-way street and all you want is the money in my pockets, it'll come across in your movie. And you know what? Your movies will continue to be getting pirated, downloaded, instead of people going to the movie theaters and spending that $150 on the Will Rogers combo for 2 popcorns, 2 sodas, and 2 hot dogs with 1 refill. You can raise all the prices you want in the movie industry. People are not going to support it if they have to pay for shit. It's simple. Would you go outside and dig through the garbage knowing that you had $100 in your pocket to eat? No. So come on. The people that make these movies are of our generations. The people that produce and write these movies are of our generation. So don't say it's not represented. You know the subject material. You know the abilities. So then don't give us what you have been. Ghostbusters is a franchise that I digressed from, unfortunately, but Ghostbusters as a franchise is one of the ones that is great. It should be looked after. It should be remastered. It should be adapted. It should be rebooted. It should keep going forward because the story has more meat to it and there are more meals to come. Afterlife, Ghostbusters Afterlife, the very last in the iteration that I watched, I felt almost humbled by literally tearing up and crying at the last Ghostbusters when Egon, a person who was dead at the time, performed a better role and a better performance than living people in the previous adaptation of Ghostbusters, and it sucked. You're telling me somebody CG'd who's no longer here on this earth can deliver a more heartfelt, stronger performance than live, real actors and actresses in that other adaptation? And that's my point. You can do the series justice if you wanted to. Ghostbusters Afterlife did it. They pulled that series. And Paul Rudd, bruh, you went from rom-com dude in the 90s to Ant-Man, Marvel Cinematic Universe, and even in Ghostbusters. My hat is off to you, bruh. My hat is off to you. You are a person that surprised me. You showed that you have depth. And I like the fact that even in the most serious points, you still have comedic activity and timing. You, sir, Paul Rudd. I can go all the way back to Overnight Delivery with Reese Witherspoon, where you were literally sending a videotape to your girlfriend with the used condom in it. That, from the moment I saw you in those kind of movies, I wanted to see where you would go. And I love the fact that you went all the way up to the top. Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Ernie Hudson, to even the late great Harold Ramis, Annie Potts. The entire cast of the Ghostbusters was represented in the last movie with the lack of Rick Moranis. And like I said, he's a great actor. You deserve to go off into the sunset if you don't want to act anymore. But I believe you still have some acting chops in you, and I would love to see you act again. you have it in you. Quite recently, Steve Martin and Martin Short, they did Only Murders in the Building with Selena Gomez. They were another bunch of actors who said their time was done. They were done acting, but yet and still they decided to throw their hands because they are classically trained actors, classically well-trained actors that we grew up watching all the time. Some of them have done drama, some have done comedy, some have done more serious roles, but I like the fact that they were able to get off of where they were from their lives and come back and deliver a performance for us. If you haven't seen Murders in the Building, that is another series I'm going to review. It just wrapped its second season, and second season was just as good as the first season. Bravo, and hats off to an all-star cast on that series. Amazing. But like I said, when you have a bunch of A-lister actors in one film, one or two things are certain. It's either going to be absolutely amazing or absolutely dog shit. The Ghostbusters was the exception to disprove the rule because the movie was great. From a comedy standpoint, from a serious standpoint, to even the first movie had some elements of horror. Some of the zombies, some of the eat dead people, some of the creatures and ghosts. I liked it. I held on to everything. The sequel, which some people don't like, I thought was just as good as the original. It was more comedy than drama than the original. The original had a lot of drama because they were establishing their universe, and I do like it. Part 2 is still one of my favorites. Them getting into Statue of Liberty to Your Love Lifted Me Higher, come on. Who could not love Ghostbusters in the head of a Statue of Liberty jamming the music walking through New York? That was come on. How could you top 100-foot Marshmallow Man but to have them walk into one of the city's great landmarks in the movie? That's what I'm saying when I say people have creativity. Because before that, you never seen a Statue of Liberty get up, walk across the harbor, and go into the city. But they thought outside the box. They thought bigger and better from their first movie. Now, when it came after those two, or between those two, you had the Real Ghostbusters and Slimer and the Real Ghostbusters, an animated series, which I've watched every single last episode. I have every single last episode, and every once in a while, I guilty pleasure binge it, because I love that just as much. It didn't feel like it was separate from the Ghostbusters universe. It felt like a cohesive unit. And that's what I mean. You can extend your universe into other platforms by doing it justice. And I loved it. I loved the characters who voiced the Ghostbusters. I love the characters that were enveloped in it. Slime Time, Slime or Russ. They're some of my favorite episodes that I still go back and watch all the time. Some of the episodes were actually creepy for a cartoon. I know, right? Yeah, I know. But see, it was back in the day when, like I said, that PG and PG-13 was a different rating. There's some episodes of Ninja Turtles that you was like, wait a minute, that's a little bit adult. But I like that it was edgy, and that's what we're missing today, that edge. And then I played the game, the Ghostbusters. The Ghostbusters game automatically threw me back into the universe because it was literally a direct sequel from part 2. And I played through the story, and I felt like I was a part of that universe. Now that universe that I loved, I felt like I was a part of. And that's what a game off of a movie is supposed to do. It's supposed to pull you into the universe and make you feel like a part of it. And that still, to me, and on my top 100 games, that's definitely in the top 10 as a great game. It's definitely as a top 10. If you haven't played it, you need to play it at least once. It is absolutely amazing. Now, the female Ghostbusters series, I'm not going to talk too much because, like I said, I've already have, and I don't need to bash it to death. I'm just saying you could have done better. You had an opportunity to do better. You had the ability to do better, and you did not. So let's move right on to Afterlife. Afterlife reinvigorated this series and shows that there's still more meals, there's still more to the Ghostbusters universe. I like the family aspect and the legacy characters from the late great Harold Ramis. I like the fact that you included the Real Ghostbusters into it. I like the fact that there was a Winston, there was a Ray, there was a Peter. I like the fact that you pushed this universe further than it ever has, even to the point of putting realism and death and loss into this franchise, because back in the day you wouldn't have thought of killing off any of the Ghostbusters. God rest Harold Ramis' soul, the fact that he did expire added that emotional element. And I'll tell you exactly it was. I'll tell you exactly the scene. There was a scene where they were fighting the last big bad, and as they were shooting with their proton packs, Egon appeared in a spectral sense as a ghost, because he had been helping them all along. And they're, get a little choked up still thinking about it. There's a scene where they all look over and see Harold Ramis, and they all tear up. That was real. That was not acting. That was real. They had lost their friend. And that shit comes across very good when you make a movie correctly. Because even me, I was like, not gonna cry. Not gonna do it. Oh, they're showing Egon. There's tears. Not gonna do it. Yeah. But that's called emotionality. And that is part of a great movie franchise. And that is what the Ghostbusters is. So here on 24K Movies, Reviews, and TV shows and video games, we're giving this a platinum. If we could, we would give it a platinum plus. This is a series that through the years, through over 40 years, has continued to surprise me. And as long as you do the original subject matter justice, you're going to have a series worth watching, and people will pay money to see more of it. And I look forward to seeing another part of this universe, because I'm told they're working on a sequel from what we just watched. And Ernie Hudson is still part of it, and some of the original Ghostbusters are still part of it. They just came out with a game, too, from Ghostbusters not too long ago, that you can play online with your friends, and you can all be Ghostbusters and bust ghosts, or you can be the ghost, kind of like Friday the 13th. And I love that, too. But that's what I'm saying. You can invigorate emotion into a series if you do it justice. Don't just make it because you want money and you want to cash in on that. Have a vision. Have a story. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave me down in the comments any series, movies, TV shows, or games you want me to review. I watch a lot. I play a lot. I've seen a lot. So you never know. Your review might just be picked and I might just talk about it. I was talking to somebody on the phone the other day, and they told me they like the fact that I'm honest, and they like the fact that I'm giving you a real point of view, and I'm not paid to give you a bullshit point of view. I would always give it to you real. If it's worth something, if it's not worth something, if you're going to waste your time, I'll give it to you real. Buy a gamer for a gamer. Buy an entertainer for an entertainer. Buy a media expert for a media expert. This is what we do, so that you don't have to. Check you out next time. For 24K, I'm Ray.